General now.
President Bukele for agreeing to return Abrego Garcia to the United States. Our government presented El Salvador with an arrest warrant, and they agreed to return him to our country. We're grateful to President Bukele for agreeing to return him to our country to face these very serious charges. This is what American justice looks like. Upon completion of his sentence, we anticipate he will be returned to his home country of El Salvador. The grand jury found that over the past 9 years, Abrego Garcia has played a significant role in an alien smuggling ring. They found this was his full-time job, not a contractor. He was a smuggler of humans and children and women. He made over 100 trips, the grand jury found, smuggling people throughout our country, MS-13 members, violent gang terrorist organization members throughout our country. Thousands of illegal aliens were smuggled. This is especially disturbing because Abrego Garcia is also alleged with transporting minor children. The defendant traded the innocence of minor children for profit. There are even more disturbing facts that the grand jury uncovered. It is alleged this defendant is part of the same smuggling ring responsible for the death of more than 50 migrants in 2021 after the tractor trailer overturned in Mexico. This is part of that same ring. The defendant abused undocumented alien females, according to co-conspirators who were under his control while transporting them throughout our country. This defendant trafficked firearms and narcotics throughout our country on multiple occasions. They were using vehicles, SUVs, with added seats in the back, floors that had been ripped out, guns, narcotics, children, women, MS-13 members. That is what the grand jury found. A co-conspirator alleged that the defendant solicited nude photographs and videos of a minor. A co-conspirator also alleges the defendant played a role in the murder of a rival gang member's mother. These facts demonstrate Abrego Garcia is a danger to our community. We want to thank the Department of Homeland Security, the FBI, our state and local partners, our acting U.S. Attorney Robert McGuire, and prosecutors from the Joint Task Force Vulcan. Questions?
Attorney General,
And so there you have it, the Attorney General announcing serious charges against Kilmar Abrego Garcia. You'll remember he was described as a family man, father, married, living in the Maryland area when he was mistakenly deported back to El Salvador. And a lot of people got behind him. What we heard here is a very different picture. Justice correspondent Scott McFarland joins us now from the White House. And Scott, what do you make of what you just heard? That's pretty damning.
It's a dramatic turn in a 3-month-long legal saga, Maurice. According to the charging documents reviewed by CBS News, the feds allege declaratively that Kilmar Abrego Garcia is an MS-13 conspirator and has been transporting MS-13 members by the thousands for $1,000 a trip across the country. And so much of this case hinges on a November 2022 traffic stop in Tennessee, where this case is filed in Nashville. The dash cam of that traffic stop had been released some time ago, and the feds say that was one instance in which Abrego Garcia was trafficking MS-13 members. He wasn't charged with it in 2022, but he is charged with it now. And one of the notes in the charging documents that stands out to me, the prosecutors are alleging here, Maurice, that Abrego Garcia works with several conspirators and would take the phones from people he was smuggling to prevent them from calling and alerting that the smuggling was underway. But in a larger sense, Maurice, this has always been a proxy for a bigger issue. A judge ordered Abrego Garcia's return many weeks ago because he was mistakenly deported by the administration's acknowledgement. The administration said they couldn't get him back. He was in a Salvadoran detention facility. Today shows they can get him back from El Salvador to face federal criminal charges in Nashville.
Okay, Scott McFarland, thank you so much. Let's go to Homeland Security correspondent Nicole Skanga. And Nicole, he has been charged in the U.S. These are grand jury charges. I know you can get a grand jury to indict a ham sandwich, but they heard the evidence here, and this is what they put forth.
Yeah, that's exactly right. A Tennessee grand jury put forth 2 counts: conspiracy to transport aliens, that is punishable by up to 10 years in prison and additional fines, as well as count 2 here, unlawful transportation of undocumented aliens. And as for how the United States compelled El Salvador to return Kilmar Abrego Garcia, apparently the United States presented Bukele with an arrest warrant, and at that time he was returned upon completion of his sentence. Attorney General Bondi says that he will be returned to El Salvador. She also said in that press conference that smuggling was his full-time job. It's interesting looking at the court documents here that accuse him of over a 10-year span, 2016 to 2025, of undergoing this criminal operation that moved thousands who were smuggled, including minors, MS-13s, also smuggling allegedly of cell phones, of narcotics, of weapons. She called him a danger to our community. As for what Scott just brought up, of course, ICE previously said that he was deported to El Salvador, to that maximum security prison in Secot, due to an administrative error, and that he should be returned because he would be likely to face persecution from local criminal gangs in El Salvador if he was to be returned.
Okay, Nicole Skanga, thank you so much. So once again, the headline: Kilmar Abrego Garcia on his way back to the United States this afternoon as we speak to face serious federal charges involving smuggling children and women, firearms, narcotics, and using vehicles that were tricked out really to hide all of these activities. Our coverage will continue on CBS News 24/7, on your local news, and tonight on the CBS Evening News. This has been a CBS News Special Report. I'm Maurice Dubois in New York.
You've been watching a special news report. If you're just joining us, Kilmar Abrego Garcia is on his way back to the United States to face criminal charges, charged with 2 federal criminal counts. We've been listening into a news conference as Pam Bondi is answering questions about his release and return to the United States. As we were saying, he's on his way back to the United States to face criminal charges. His return comes more than 2 months after the Trump administration mistakenly deported him to El Salvador. So Attorney General Pam Bondi announcing the charges, as we were just hearing, a ring of charges. And so we'll continue to follow the news conference. I believe it's wrapping up right now. Reporters asking her questions as we speak. So we'll continue to follow this at the White House and when Abrego Garcia is eventually returned. All right, moving on. We want to go to more information now. Let's bring in our immigration attorney for the law office, Hector, to break down the charges and what we just heard right now. If you can kind of help us out. And again, let me introduce myself, Juliette Goodrich, and your name?
I'm Hector Quiroga.
Thank you so much. Okay, so this is all coming in pretty quickly right now. Detail what you just heard and what all of this means. Very serious charges.
Yeah, these charges are very serious. Alien smuggling is something that can give long sentences and is difficult to see. But what is really relevant here is that we were told that it was about MS-13 and terrorism, and this way why he was removed. And the charges don't seem to be matching that directly. The charges are about alien smuggling. Now, the issue with alien smuggling is can be very wide. Anybody who transport an individual undocumented in the United States could be brought charges for that activity. This includes your own family members. And so we know that he was detained with 8 individuals, but we don't know too much more about who they are, or whether or not they're associated with MS-13 or not.
All right, all of the new information coming in. Hector, we're talking about Garcia coming after the Trump administration repeatedly said that they could not bring him back to the United States. So I'm curious, what has changed now that he's coming back?
Well, let's remember that this went all the way to the Supreme Court, and the court said, you must facilitate this. And then the administration says, no, we can't. And then even Salvadorian President Bukele said, we're not going to exchange terrorists, right? The fact that this is happening says the president that, yes, the administration can bring somebody back from detention in another country. And I think that's a precedent that is being set right now, and that is whether it's through habeas corpus or other kind of federal complaint, the ability to bring somebody who was detained and deported incorrectly. Let's remember this was an administrative error, could have the far-reaching effect of bringing those individuals back to be able to hear their cases in the United States.
What is the timeline now? How fast do things like this work?
Well, we're definitely experiencing a whole new set of legal landscape, especially in the area of immigration. So even getting cases to the Supreme Court this quickly is not something that we've seen. I mean, the president has been here. He's going to be reached 6 months here pretty soon, and this is all happening very quickly. So we don't really know exactly. We do know that charges by grand jury are already there, and defense has to be set up, and then it has to be moving forward. So we will be seeing here in the next 90 days how fast these things can really move.
Anything that stood out to you in this news conference? We heard a slew of very serious charges and his background that ranges for years.
Yeah, you're asking a lawyer, right? And so what we have is we have the one side of what these charges are. Remember, these are accusations. And what is particularly important here is, remember the accusations before. It was about terrorism. The government defended not opening the file because there were some national security concerns. And then the federal judge said that they didn't actually see that serious of concern more than any other thing. And so they kind of opened it. And so there has been some obscurity as to really what evidence there is. Now, we believe a grand jury at least move forward charges. And so there is some credence here, but we would like to see more because right now they're just allegations.
Absolutely. All right. Appreciate your expertise. Thank you so much for your time in this breaking news right now. I want to go to News Justice correspondent Scott McFarland. Scott, what stands out to you from Pam Bondi's announcement?
Pam Bondi's announcement had more details than the charging documents do, and I want to underscore that. She alleged things during that press conference against Kilmar Abrego Garcia that they have not alleged in court to the grand jury. It's not part of the indictment in the case. She made a reference to a murder. She made a reference to young people, youths being trafficked. That's not something we see in the charging documents. So let me read what they've actually put out to the court system. They say that Kilmar Abrego Garcia is an MS-13 member, that he's worked with at least 5 co-conspirators to traffic suspected MS-13 members across the country, that he earned $1,000 a trip to do so. And they really just cite one specific moment, one specific example. In November 2022, traffic stop in Tennessee, where this case has been filed, in which he was suspected of having
What happens when reporters take you inside the story?
I've been asking for over a year and a half for access into this place, and this is the first time we're getting it.
You get the all-new CBS Evening News every weeknight.
This is CBS.
Now the grand jury's indictment, and what we were hearing from Pam Bondi was that slew of part of an alien smuggling ring involving children and women and MS-13 members with a long history of this smuggling ring going on. On top of that, what other things stood out to you?
That really has been the story of Kilmar Abrego Garcia from the jump. What the Trump administration says publicly and what they say in court, there's been a delta. There's been a difference between those two things. And that's something the critics of the administration have seized on. In fact, Senator Chris Van Hollen, the Maryland Democrat who visited with Abrego Garcia outside the Salvadoran detention facility a few weeks ago, has already put out a statement saying this transport of Abrego Garcia, this case of Abrego Garcia, raises questions about whether the administration has been truthful, because they've been arguing they couldn't get him back because he was in Salvadoran custody. Clearly they can get him back for the purposes of charging him. What else stood out? I think ultimately that issue, that fundamental issue of when did they decide they could get Abrego Garcia back from El Salvador? This case was filed May 21st under seal. It has been revealed and unsealed today, June 6th. Something over the past 17 days has changed in their standing with Abrego Garcia and getting him out of Salvadoran custody.
And this may not be clear yet, but his wife has been very vocal and very visual in all of this. Have we seen her come forward since this new information?
And we put requests in for comment from her and from her attorneys. I'd expect a response would be punctual if they're going to comment on this, because she has been such a vocal advocate for him, hasn't she? She's been somebody out there saying these allegations he's an MS-13 member are unequivocally false, that he was mistakenly deported, which the administration acknowledges. But in the court filings, they don't spell out a series of granular specific crimes and moments and dates and cities. They have just that one reference to the incident in Tennessee, but they do make the broader reference. They put some numbers behind it, saying he helped traffic thousands of people, and that he did so with at least 5 co-conspirators, and they put one note in there that there's allegation that he would have, or the conspiracy would have, phones taken from those being trafficked to prevent them calling out to authorities en route from one city to another. That, they say, is a symptom of a large-scale trafficking ring.
Absolutely. I know this is all coming in fast and it's new information. So as we're hearing it's part of a larger alien smuggling ring. Can we then assume there will be more charges filed and others charged as well in this?
When you see conspiracy cases at the federal level, you see it start with one, and then co-conspirators become some component of the case. They either become co-defendants, charged, facing the same charges, facing the same possible penalties, or they become star witnesses in the case who are flipped, agree to plea agreements to turn evidence against the co-conspirators. We'll watch for the case to unfold from here, but I will note it's filed in, of all places, Nashville, Tennessee. That's the site of the 2022 traffic stop that's at the heart of this case. If there are broader allegations of transnational crimes, of murder, of sex trafficking, if that becomes a component of this case, you may see those cases pop up in other parts of the country.
Yeah, and help me out here. Do you know the timeline as to when we may be seeing him come back to the United States?
What is typical, and sometimes it's a mistake to rely on what's typical.
Yeah.
What's typical, though, is the case is unsealed once somebody is in custody of the United States and somewhere in the borders of the United States. So it could be in very short order we see Kilmar Abrego Garcia in the way that we see somebody in the federal system. You recall a couple of the hallmarks of the federal justice system. There are no cameras in the courtroom. There are no microphones in the courtroom, and sometimes they do not release booking photos. So some of this may be happening invisibly through the system, at least in the initial stages.
And this may be repetitive, but I do want to ask you this question. Garcia coming back after the Trump administration was repeatedly saying that they could not bring him back to the United States, arguing he was out of the government's jurisdiction in El Salvador. So do we know what changed?
Something changed. And you better believe the critics of the administration who've been on their case about this case from the start will say, if you could get him back, why didn't you get him back when the judge ordered you to? Back in April. That's going to be an issue in the days ahead. What's more, that difference in what Pam Bondi articulated, the laundry list of violent crimes she accused him of, and the very few specific crimes alleged in the court filing, the difference between those two, critics are going to pick up on that as well, wondering if they say one thing publicly and a different thing to the courts.
Yeah, absolutely. Scott McFarland, thank you so much. I know all this new information just came in, and I appreciate all of the background that you're able to give us. Thank you. All right, more breaking news to come. You're watching CBS News 24/7.
What happens when you get conversation over conflict?
I think they've taught me to have grace and compassion.
When we follow the human side of the headline.
I'm not asking that we ignore disability, rather that we do not ignore ability.
When news takes you where the story happens.
We've just crossed into Lebanon.
When the world's best journalists come together to cover your world, you get the all-new CBS Evening News every weeknight. It's the most popular F word in Washington, fraud.
Is it true that the Social Security number of just about every single American is available for sale on the dark web?
An eye-opening 60 Minutes report.
That's chilling.
It's time for 60 Minutes.
Your life is still a mystery.
When your gut tells you something fishy's going on, there's almost always a 4-day-old carp lying around somewhere. Finishing this is the only thing that's important to me. Either way, the truth is coming out.
Heading home? Who the hell are you, Madeline Matlock?
Matlock. All episodes now streaming on Paramount Plus and returning CBS Fall.
Sunday morning, we hail a driverless taxi, plus billionaire Barry Diller's revealing new memoir, and when trash becomes art, this Sunday morning.
Politics isn't a game. When do consumers actually get to touch and feel a difference in their lives? Politics is about policy. So you would encourage Democrats to work with Donald Trump on an issue like health care? I'm a voracious consumer of information, and I'm impatient. I don't like to be spun. Do you know if there are active terror cells in the United States right now? To be moderator of Face the Nation means bringing the most powerful stakeholders to the table to become better informed.
It was almost like being face-to-face with the devil.
48 Hours reports.
I fought and fought.
911, what is your emergency?
She disappeared off the face of the earth.
Stream 48 Hours, 24/7.
Elspeth, I thought I saw you. And then I thought, well, who else could it be? Dressed as a member of the Lollipop Guild.
I work with the police. I like my outlandish theories with a heavy dose of evidence.
Nice alibi, by the way.
Can you be careful with that?
Whoever did this is still out there. And I do love a mystery.
Elsbeth, all episodes now streaming on Paramount Plus and returning CBS Fall.
And welcome back to CBS News 24/7. We've been covering breaking news. U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi holding a news conference just moments ago saying that Abrego Garcia is on his way back to the United States to face criminal charges. His return comes more than 2 months after the Trump administration mistakenly deported him to El Salvador. We're learning a long slew of charges he faces. Let's go to some sound from Pam Bondi just moments ago.
That we've seen video of from Tennessee where Abrego Garcia was first identified by the local authorities. At the time, the Homeland Security Department declined to take custody of him. What has happened in between that time and in between the time that the government has been arguing that he was not returnable from El Salvador? What has happened since in this investigation that brought you here?
Yes, the question was in 2021, there was the traffic stop. And what has changed since then? What has changed is Donald Trump is now president of the United States and our borders are again secure. And thanks to the bright light that has been shined on Abrego Garcia, this investigation continued with actually amazing police work. And we were able to track this case and stop this international smuggling ring from continuing.
Recently found facts, right?
Yes,
okay.
Recently found facts.
To that point, can you just explain when this investigation was opened? The investigation in Tennessee, can you say when that investigation was opened?
Well, the grand jury indicted on May 21st. This investigation has been ongoing.
This case has been hotly debated here in Washington. In your mind, does this resolve that issue in terms of his deportation? And should this be seen in any way as complying with the judge's order to return him to the U.S. and the Supreme Court ruling that the U.S. government should facilitate his return?
There's a big difference between what the state of play was before the indictment and after the indictment. And so the reason why he is back and was returned was because there's an arrest warrant, which was presented to the government in El Salvador. So there's a big difference there. As far as whether it makes the ongoing litigation in Maryland moot, I would think so, but we don't know that. This, he just landed today.
Jake, CBS. I just want to confirm what you said earlier, that you're intending to prosecute him and keep him in an American prison if he's found guilty, and then would remove him after his sentence is over.
Correct. Yes, he will be prosecuted in our country, sentenced in our country if convicted, and then returned after completion of his sentence.
Last one, Sadie, Wall Street Journal.
Okay. I had two. One's on topic, one's off topic. Maybe I misunderstood you, but you were mentioning, that he had some involvement in a murder, or was connected to groups that had, involved with this other smuggling ring. But to be clear, the only charges he's facing right now are the, human smuggling charges. Just that's the one offense. But the other things that you have talked about are not actually in the indictment?
No, co-conspirators allege that. And we were clear to say that he is charged with, it's not only very serious charges of alien smuggling. And again, there were children involved in that. Human trafficking, not only in our country, but in our world, is very, very real. It's very dangerous. And as you saw recently in Virginia, the arrest we made of the MS-13 member, unrelated to this, we learned at that press conference that's where they bring young children into our country and they start grooming them at middle school age to become MS-13 full-fledged members, commit violent crimes throughout our country. It is highly organized. It is very dangerous. And they are living throughout our country, but no more, because they are being arrested, they are being prosecuted, and being convicted and deported when appropriate. That's all for today.
All right, those comments coming from Attorney General Pam Bondi. I want to go to CBS News Department of Justice reporter Jake Rosen. He joins us by phone because he was inside that news conference. Thanks for the hustle, Jake. Why don't you tell us your big takeaways from being inside that room, even asking questions during that news conference?
No problem. And really what we saw here is potentially the Department of Justice and the Trump administration's move in court in a separate way than that civil suit that was going on to try to order his return, brought by his wife and people close to him and legal groups fighting for his return. The Department of Justice has said all along and said in court that any way that he would be brought back to the United States would essentially to be charged with something or then redeported to another country, because the only country he could not be deported to was where he was sent in El Salvador. I think, another thing that we saw was alleging that he's part of some broad MS-13 scheme. Obviously, that evidence had never been presented in the civil suit or public before today, which is why it's such breaking news that they allege he's part of potentially an alleged 100-plus human trafficking trips. Pam Bondi alluded to potentially thousands of people being moved around the country, guns being moved, young children. Certainly a remarkable development in this case. We need to see whether he gets convicted, but that's kind of where things stand at the moment in terms of the charges that are brought. They also alleged, without evidence, that, without concrete evidence, that he potentially was involved in a murder and in soliciting naked pictures from a minor. That was not charged today. Attorney General Bondi, you saw in that last question, just said that co-conspirators mentioned it. That's certainly something to put in the public discourse, but until we see charges on that, those are just allegations right now that are not backed up by legal charges.
Sure, and Jake, I'm holding the indictment in my hand right now, reading through it, and some of what Pam Bondi was saying actually wasn't in this indictment. Are you able to tell us more about what you heard from her announcement? Some of the things that stood out was that he was part of an alien smuggling ring involving children, women, MS-13 members. Very stern remarks from the Attorney General. What else did you hear that is not written in this indictment?
Well, like I just said, I think they allege that he was part of a potential murder plot of a rival gang member's mother, that he had solicited naked pictures from a minor. Those are two significant developments for anyone. Those are not charged here. But in addition to that, really what we've seen from the Trump administration generally, if you take a step back and think about these high-profile arrests that they've launched and done press conferences about, a lot of the charges and allegations have either been overcharged and they've kind of put more things into the public sphere, like you just mentioned, that haven't actually been charged, or they've dropped the charges and moved to deport the person. Obviously, I asked Pam Bondi if that was going to be the case in this situation because, again, that would kind of prove the Department of Justice's point all along. She says that that's not the case. They intend to hold him in an American prison. But certainly putting more allegations out there without evidence really continues the PR war, I guess you could say, the public perception change that the Trump administration has wanted to do all along since really the public kind of moved to this man's side after his case was first launched and a judge ordered his return.
Do we know any particular timeline? What happens now moving forward?
Right. So the Department of Justice, as this press conference was kicking off, asked for Abrego Garcia to be held in prison while these pretrial proceedings play out. Obviously, that would be a big step. They claim every move he's ever made in his adult life is about crime and harming communities. There has not been an initial court appearance that we've been made aware of yet. There was no mention of that in the press conference. That would be the first step. Then we'd likely see potentially additional charges filed, or there would have to be an arraignment in which he could plead guilty or not guilty. And now, the big question also is this legal case right up the road in Maryland. What happens to that? Does the judge see it as moot now that he's been returned and charged with something else? Technically, that does fulfill her order, but she has been very critical of the Trump administration about how they've handled this case, and I don't think making those allegations here, in addition to the real charges they have against him, are going to help that case.
Sure. And Jake, we should mention that Abrego Garcia's wife has been very vocal in all of this to get her husband back home to the family. Have we heard anything from her? Do we know if she may emerge at a news conference or talk? And I think actually we might be looking at some video right here, or maybe this is past video in the past where she has addressed the news media talking about how she wants her husband home.
Yeah, and she's really stood by his side while other allegations that we've reported on at CBS that there have been domestic violence accusations against him by her. Those charges were never brought, but there were allegations in a state court in Maryland for a temporary protective order to keep her husband, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, away from her. We'll see what her and her attorney say, if anything, in the next coming days. We have not heard something yet, but certainly really the pressure cooker has built and built and built to this point. We were waiting to see what the Trump administration would do, if anything, and now we've finally seen what they've decided to do, which is charge him with 2 counts of smuggling people throughout the United States, specifically undocumented immigrants that the Trump administration alleges are gang members.
Well, Jake Rosen, you were inside that news conference. Thank you so much for rushing out to talk with us and bring us the latest developments. Appreciate all of your insight as well, and we'll catch up with you a little bit later. Meantime, CBS News contributor Rebecca Royfee joining us live now with more on this. Can you tell us about the charges that Garcia faces? Okay. We'll actually circle back with her in just a moment. Obviously, these are new developments right now. We're going to circle back with her. We'll bring you more news on this breaking news story when we come back. You're watching CBS News 24/7.
We're NCIS.
You guys want to see me do the cha-cha slide?
Can we get to the body, please?
Right.
Oh, what's got you so punchy lately?
Not punchy. Passionate.
This is a great team for what?
We're NCIS.
NCIS, all episodes now streaming on Paramount Plus and returning CBS Fall.
No matter how you start your day, one thing is clear.
Actually, 2 things. Pretty sure it's 3.
Guys, whether it's news, money, health, or wellness, sports, movies, or even inspiration.
Clearly, CBS Mornings is the place to be. That's like 7 things.
Okay, clearly, I'm bad at math, always been. Clearly, CBS Mornings, weekdays at 7 on CBS.
We can start whenever you're ready.
Ready?
Yeah.
No, stop! Wrong pedal, wrong other pedal!
Did I pass?
Now serving 942.
Go to the ends of the earth.
We'll hit the heights.
A great adventure together.
And reach for the stars.
Star power. I like it.
So cool.
But wait, there's more.
Experience thought-provoking.
Something that's undeniable.
With mindfulness. Innovative.
Magical.
It's like being a child.
And truly original reporting.
God, you do your research. I tell a good story.
Because there's always something new under the sun on CBS Sunday morning.
Hi, CBS. I'm Tom Ellis. I can't wait for you to see my new show, CIA, coming CBS Fall.
What happens when the world's best journalists come together?
Write a prescription for the healing of America.
You get the stories of America every weeknight. You get the all-new CBS Evening News.
When everything's on the line, real heroes rise to the occasion. Or die trying. We're firefighters. We're gonna find a way to get you out of here.
We take the hits together.
We're on the same team.
I'm right here with you, no matter what.
I would never leave you hanging in the deep end.
This place is a way of giving you new family.
Fire Country. All episodes now streaming on Paramount Plus and returning CBS Fall.
Welcome back to CBS News 24/7. Breaking news at this hour. U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi says Kilmar Abrego Garcia is on his way back to the United States to face criminal charges. His return comes more than 2 months after the Trump administration mistakenly deported him to El Salvador. Now, Abrego Garcia faces 2 charges, including unlawful transportation of undocumented aliens. CBS News contributor Rebecca Royfee joining us now with more. Rebecca, can you tell us the charges that he faces?
Yes, absolutely. So 2 charges, as you said, having to do with transporting undocumented individuals within the United States. That's a fairly serious federal crime. He's also facing a conspiracy charge of agreeing with somebody else or working with a group to do that exact same conduct. So those are both federal crimes. They're fairly serious crimes. The sentence he would face depends on a number of factors that are not clear yet.
Yeah, it's going to be a long legal battle, as we've been hearing, and all of these new charges. Can you talk about kind of the optics of all of this now that he's coming back?
Yes, absolutely. So, first of all, this gives the United States a way out because they've been in this entrenched battle with the court, which was insisting, all the way up to the Supreme Court, insisting that the United States facilitate his return. And the government was digging in its heels, saying it did not want to bring him back and did not want to set him loose because it believed that he was a member of this dangerous gang. But of course, those allegations hadn't been proven. And so this, in a way, is a sort of backdoor, a way out in which they can bring him back. And so, in essence, sort of moot that legal case while still not releasing him. On another level, as you say, the optics are not great because it looks as if they are after this particular individual in a way. And our criminal law is designed to enforce or prosecute crimes, not actually go against a particular person. And so, in a way, it makes it look as if the government has targeted him because, of sort of immigration policy issues, which is, and wouldn't be inappropriate. And again, it's not clear that that's what happened, but there's a sort of, there is a way in which it looks that way, and that, is not quite appropriate.
Sure. Okay. And what is he facing if convicted, or it might be too soon to tell?
No, I mean, it's not that, I think it is a little bit too soon to tell, in part because this statute is complex and the sentence that he faces depends on a number of factors, like the number of individuals who are being transported, whether anybody was hurt, where they were being transported. And so, these are facts that we are not quite sure of, but he would definitely face imprisonment if he was convicted of these crimes.
Sure. And as we were listening to Pam Bondi's news conference, and as she was giving more details than what we actually saw in the grand jury indictment written down, what stood out to you?
Well, one of the things that I think is going to be a big issue in this case is the cooperating witness and how much of the case hinges on that. Of course, there is that, that he was initially stopped, in a traffic stop a while back with a number of individuals in the car. So that's not something that relies on the cooperating witness. But in a case like this, there's always a question about the cooperating witness and that witness's motivation for testifying in a particular way. And so whenever federal prosecutors or any prosecutors are building a case, they want to make sure that they've corroborated a significant amount of what that individual says, so that the jury will believe that person, even though that person, has a checkered past.
All right, Rebecca Royfee, thank you so much for your expertise. Appreciate it. All right, moving on to other things. Now to the White House, and the feud between President Trump and once ally Elon Musk appears to be cooling down. The two traded insults and accusations on social media yesterday. Now Musk appears to have a different target, Trump ally Steve Bannon. This after Bannon called for Musk's drug use and immigration history be investigated. So CBS News White House and Politics Executive Director Finn Gomez joining us live now with what we know about this feud with Bannon.
Yeah, it sure has gotten ugly pretty quickly here. Former White House chief strategist Steve Bannon, an ally of President Trump, was there really at the beginning of the advent of the MAGA movement. He told CBS News earlier today that the Trump administration must investigate Elon Musk, the world's richest man, for possible drug use and looking into his immigration status and whether his citizenship process was handled properly. Musk is a South African native who became a naturalized citizen in this country. But Bannon also told CBS that the White House should take away Musk's security clearance, investigate again his drug use and his involvement with, quote, China. This was during a phone interview, Jules. And also he